So, following on from the mindfulness practices that I recorded and we put up online over the last couple of weeks on the Pennine Sports Partnership Facebook and Twitter pages, I thought it'd be a good idea to do a short introduction to mindfulness and also introduce the Pause B lessons that the children had been taking part in to give a basic understanding of the principles of mindfulness as something that we might see as being a nice to do and the benefits around relaxation and calming ourselves, but also from a neuroscientific level as well, the impact that it can have on, or it has been seen to have on the brain as well, and how that can benefit different areas of our lives. So hopefully you find it useful. Hopefully it gives a greater depth understanding to the impacts of such practices, like the ones that I've put up on the Pennine Sports Partnership pages. Over the last couple of years, as I mentioned briefly, there's been about 1,000 Key Stage 2 pupils, years 3 to 6, that have taken part in the Pause B mindfulness lessons that have been delivered by myself and Kat, who's one of our sports coordinators as well. And we've also introduced principles around mindfulness into Key Stage 1 physical activity as well, principles around stilling the mind and stilling the body in a physical environment, and just introducing those principles at an early stage and giving children those skills. The basis, though, of the Pause B lessons is around four key parts of the brain, learning about four key parts of the brain, how we can train those parts of the brain and how that can be beneficial to different parts of our experience of our lives. The lessons themselves are called Pause B, with the analogy being that the spelling of the word PAWS being that the mind is a bit like a puppy, that it can sometimes wander around sniffing aimlessly, that it might not sit and pay attention, that it makes messes, brings back things that we didn't ask for, in a similar way that our minds can behave in that way. But with training and patience and kindness and being firm, we can train the mind in the same way that we can train a puppy to be more present and being able to still and being able to pay attention. So the benefits that that can have to us can support us in emotional challenging situations, can help us develop skills and be more competent at practical skills, but could also simply just increase and boost more happiness in our lives, which actually I do feel is a skill and something that can take time to focus on, or we should take time to focus on how to experience more happiness in our lives. So the children are introduced into lessons that they're going to be neuroscientists, that they're going to learn about the parts of the brain and explore the different parts of the brain, starting with the understanding of neuroplasticity. And this word neuroplasticity means the moldable, changeable nature of the brain, that it changes throughout the lifespan. And I think that gives us a sense of real, I suppose, autonomy and control over our choices, that actually the things that we do, the choices that we have, the decisions that we make can make changes to the structure and function of the brain. And if I go back 20, 30 years ago, the understanding of the knowledge of diet and exercise on the physical body was relatively very limited, certainly amongst young people. But now, fast forward to assemblies that we do across the partnership, when we talk to children about diet and exercise, their understanding of how that being aware of their choices around diet and exercise can have on the body are really great to hear, and to see that the children have that knowledge, and I feel that understanding about the brain and learning about parts of the brain and our relationship to training the brain in the same way is going to be really beneficial and valuable for us as well. So this understanding that we can change the brain throughout the lifespan is centered around four key parts of the brain, and we learn about in week one the prefrontal cortex, which is a part of the brain, and not forgetting as well that this is valuable to us as adults, not just the children in the lessons, but the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain behind the forehead. And on a very basic neuroscientific level, the children learn that it's responsible for helping us concentrate, to create awareness, for us to make choices and therefore be our best. So if we take the example, if we're learning in the classroom from a learning point of view, if we are able to train the ability to focus and pay attention better, we're more aware of the choices available to us, the answers that we might have on a very basic level, and therefore we're able to be our best. If our mind's wandering and it's distracted, we're not quite as aware of those choices, and that's true for our experience of emotional situation as well. If we're more reactive and we're not really focusing and paying attention to what's actually happening, we're less able to make wise choices and respond in a way that's more wise. And if we think about mind wandering and how the nature of the mind can be distracted, like that puppy mind, if we think already, 6 minutes into this short talk, I'm sure that your mind has already wandered off to having a cup of tea or what you're going to be doing later or something that might have happened earlier. It's in the nature of the mind to wander, and teaching that children that this is a learnable skill, that we can train this part of the brain to be more present, to be more aware, is something that is a learnable skill as much as maths, English, or any other subject that we might learn. So, in training this way, the principle of the mindfulness practices, like the ones that I've recorded and put up online, is this invitation to keep our attention with the body sensations, with the breath, or we can also use any of the other five senses as well, just to really connect with our present moment experiences, and it kind of anchors our attention to this present moment. It's been found that we do spend over 50% of our lives outside of the present moment and ruminating about the past or planning and thinking about the future. And it's not to say that thinking and planning isn't helpful, but if we can experience more present moment influence, then we can find ourselves being more able to respond in wiser and calmer ways, but be also more settled and grounded as well. So the other key part of the brain, or one of the other key parts of the brain that we learn about in the lessons, is the amygdala, which is the area of the brain that's recognised as being our reptilian brain, the oldest part of our brain to develop in ourselves as a species, in our evolution, but also when we were in our mother's tummy as well, the first part of our brain to develop. And our brains in our earliest evolution were there to just protect ourselves from our immediate environment, from any threats in our immediate environment, and the reactions of fight, flight and freeze that the amygdala are responsible for. If we had to stop and think, if we were being attacked maybe by a saber-toothed tiger, and we had to stop and actually think about choices that we had to make, then we'd be pretty much a saber-toothed tiger's lunch. So the reactive nature of the amygdala is there just to protect ourselves and get ourselves away from danger. And if we use an example in our day-to-day lives, if you put your hand on something hot, you don't have to stop and think about removing it. It removes itself, and that's your amygdala doing that. But in the same way, we can experience perceived threats from such things as arguments or the way that someone looks at us, or in a child or a teenager's lives, something that the parent says that they want them to do something, and they can react in a very threatened way to a demand or somebody else's response to them. And these threats and these responses, although we're not having a saber-toothed tiger chasing down the road, it can feel a little bit like that, and it can feel that that's happening to us. And the principle of mindfulness is to create a little bit of a pause between emotion and reaction, so that we're able to connect with that prefrontal cortex. We're able to communicate better and notice what's going on in that reactive state of the amygdala. Create that little bit of a pause, and then respond in a way that's more wise and more reflective of the situation, more kind towards ourselves and more kind towards the other people around us as well. And that's what the basic principle of mindfulness is. And John Kabat-Zinn, who's a great place to start any further reading around mindfulness, his working definition of mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And it's not to say that we won't judge our experiences, because we have judgments all day long about everything, but it's just to recognise that judgment and just be with it. And hopefully, if we can just introduce a little bit into our lives, a little bit more present moment focus, then the impacts that it can have can be massive. And practice is really key and really important in developing this skill and accessing more of this. And we find that from practicing in a formal way, we bring more mindful experiences and moments into our day-to-day lives, and we're able to access the skills of being more aware of our responses throughout our daily lives as well. So I'm going to record another practice and put it up online. Hopefully this has been useful to you. Please continue to comment and like and share on the Facebook and Twitter pages, and I will speak to you soon.